No, thank you, honey. Cheers.
Do we have an interlude, or is it just 2 hours?
No,
straight?
no, it's only an hour and a half. Was it 6:30, 7:30? Yeah, 8.
Oh, choice. So
Matariki. Wait.
I know. I was like, oh, God, we might run a thing.
I was like, I'll leave it up to Manny.
Is this a private conversation, Kōrero?
Have you, did you give them your intro? Yeah. Can I read it to you? It's that.
Probably lots of spelling mistakes.
And then there's a couple of...
The official ceremonies in September.
Oh, they must have changed it around a bit. Well, actually, I don't know. They're probably a bit flash on mine, right?
Yeah, no, my one they had, I hadn't seen.
Okay, yeah.
Is that right?
Check. 1, 2.
Do you want me to read it out to you?
No.
Come on, Kōrero.
I don't know if they trusted Mataora mahi atua to his work at Tūriki Hake. Okay, yeah, it's all right.
Yeah.
It's all true.
Is it true? No lies in there?
Oh, you know, trusted Mataora was pushing it.
I think their mics work.
Mataora.
Is it
Yeah.
just a
Check.
Mataora
1,
mahi
2.
atua, yeah?
1, 2.
Oh, yeah, man. With my
Check.
Yeah, that's definitely beyond what I wrote. They probably fixed it up. Yeah, work at Tūriki and mahi atua.
I had, last year at these talks, we had Papa Rao,
Oh,
and I had
yeah.
to do his intro. He was like, don't read any of that out.
Yeah, I'm like, just say, oh, this is Rikki from Kapanunu. They'll make me happy.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Did you hear us? She's Mike's hot.
Oh,
Mike's hot.
is it going through the speakers, is it?
Oh, crack.
Oh.
Tēnā tātou katoa, me kara ki a tātou. Mai e titipua, mai e te tahito, mai e te kāhui o ngā riki, mai e tā whiwhi atu ki ngā tua. O I ka tākina te mauri ko te mauri āhua no mai ki runga ki e nei taura, ki runga ki e nei tauira. Kia tau te mauri ki runga ki e nei tauira, he tukuna no te whai oro a tāne te waiora, tēnei te matatau kei ke whakatū tārewa ki te rangi. Haumi e, hui e, taike. O e ngā mana, e ngā reo, e rauranga tira mā, tēnā koutou katoa. Tuatahi ake, tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou e hara mai nei ki te tautoko I tēnei kōrero rangatira, ara ko Matariki kōrero te hauora o te hinengaro. Kua tai mai nei ki te whakarongo, ki te whiriwhiri whakaaro, ki te kōrero I ngā kaupapa o te pō. Tēnei te reo pōhiri ki a koutou ngā manuhiri tuārangi. Me mihi ki te pai kōrero o te pō, nau mai ngā pukenga, nau mai ngā wānanga, nau mai ngā whiako, nau mai ngā puna mātauranga. Me mihi hoki ki ngā taonga e hora nei, nau mai te mātāpono o mana taonga. E tika ana te kōrero, he oranga ngākau, he piki ngā waiora. Nā runga I tērā, nau mai, haere mai, I raro I te maru o tō tātou nei whare, o te hono ki Hawaii, ki runga o rongo marairoa, kia ora mai koutou katoa. Welcome everyone to the kōrero for tonight. Ko Lucy Schrader Manuera tōku ingoa, ko au te tahi o ngā pukenga hotaka tūmata nui I te papa. I'll quickly run through our health and safety before passing over to our facilitator and pai kōrero for this evening. In the case of an emergency or an evacuation, follow our host instructions. Our hosts are wearing the Te Papa event shirts. If you need to go to the whareeti or the bathrooms, just follow out the right from the pounamu. If you need to leave early, please leave quietly and follow the path you came in. Tēnā whakamihi atu ki te pai kōrero, please welcome our panel Kei a koutou te wā.
Kei a te pō, te timatanga o te waiata o ngā tua. Ko te ao tū, ko te ao tūro. Ka hoki māhara hara wairua ki te uku pāke hoe te kuru waka I te o newhero. I whakapū mau te rangahiri o te timatanga māpū o te tangata. Te rangahau, te manua tīna, te manua tōka, tīhei, mauri ora.
Tēnā koe, Rikki. Kia ora mai tātou. Ko ai tēnei, ko Māni Dunlop. Tēnei huri tēnei no te wharetapu o Ngāpuhi. Shout out the North whānau. I am facilitating this kōrero tonight and have the privilege of introducing our beautiful and stunning guests. We just got a little taster of the magic we're going to experience this evening. Whānau. Our kaupapa this evening is te hauora o te hinengaro, and invites us to reflect on what it means to live well, or to try, and live well in today's world, grounded in mātauranga Māori, no easy feat. As we celebrate Matariki and mark it, we also acknowledge the rising of our own aspirations and our well-being, and what connects us to each other, what connects us to ourselves, and what connects us to our whakapapa and our tipuna. So, without further ado, I want to firstly introduce Hana Tapiata. Gosh, God, great start, bro. Oh my God. Hana Tapiata, aroha mai e hoa. Just so serenaded by the taonga. Hana is no tūhaurangi no Ngāti Tarawhai, and is a writer and a māma who brings Māori philosophy, pūrākau and atua mātauranga to the fore in how we reimagine wellness, liberation and self-determination. And her recent book, plug, Atua Wahine, reminds us of the ancient wisdom within our whakapapa and how atua narratives can empower us in our everyday lives. Please, paki mai, mo Hana Tapiata. Bye. And next we have Rikki Solomon no Ngāti Kahanganu, and he wanted me to finish my intro on him on that one, but I won't. No Ngāti Kahanganu, no Ngāti Kahuki Whangarua, a kaiarahi in the hauora and a trusted mataora with mahia atua. Through his work at Turuki Healthcare, Rikki weaves manamataka Māori into our understanding of mental well-being and anchoring us in the rhythms of te taiao, and his background in funeral care also gives him a profound lens on grief, healing and connection to those who have passed. So together they offer us some powerful, will be offering us some powerful perspectives on how mātauranga Māori can be a guide and a pou for our hinengaro, especially in challenging times. So just to open up the kōrero, I'm going to throw to our kai kōrero. Hana, coming to you first. I mean, te hauora o te hinengaro, if we can just touch on what that concept means to you and your opening remarks. E hoa, kei a koe te rākau.
Tēnā koe te tuakana, kia koe hoki e Rikki, a kia tātou, kua hui mai nei tēnei pō, a te ati awa, taranaki whānui, Ngāti Toa, a nei ngā ngāwha o te waiariki, o whakarewarewa, ai mihi kau atu nei kia koutou, a ko taku pēpi, he uri hoki no Ngāti Raukawa me pare hauraki ai te tau tōna pāpā, he raukura no te kohanga reo, no te kura kaupapa Māori, no te aho matua, e mihi nei kia koutou o tira kia tātou. And I love how we share our pepeha, we share that type of exchange to connect to kaupapa, to place, but it also provides that context that my perspective on hinengaro is shaped by probably many intersecting threads that we can pull from, and then some that are probably way out the gate that you may have heard for the first time tonight. Engari, mo te tā ki te hinengaro, I'll just draw on a conversation Māni and I were having earlier about tamariki and how they're just trying to make sense of the world. And very observant, even when you think they're not, ever listening, watching. I have a 3.5-year-old and another pepe at home, and just so quick to pick things up. And I reflect back on when I was younger, always a deep thinker, always loved wānanga, but with aroha, said with aroha, a lot of the people close to me, the adults, had too much going on, trying to reclaim and revitalise and hold on to the culture of what they could. That deep questions about the world, just go somewhere else with that. Pretty much, or that's what I interpreted. And so there was this part of me that I clocked. It was like, okay, people don't like me when I do that. When I ask why and why and why and why and why again. But they like me when I do well, get good marks, make the sports team and that kind of thing. And as a tamaiti, you're like just, okay, people like me when I do this, they don't like me when I do that. I'm going to focus more and value this, and we'll just repress, suppress this side of me, even though it's a huge part of my identity. And how the whakapapa of that led to a point in my life where I didn't know who I was if I wasn't playing rugby. Would take it back 10 years, 2015, trialling for the New Zealand Sevens team to go to the Rio Olympics the following year. And I got really badly injured, played my way out of the development squad, and I was at this crisis point, like, who am I if I'm not playing rugby? Which is really sad, you know? But that's what I had put my worth and identity and value, that Hana was only valuable if she performed as a rugby player. And so I knew that that wasn't a healthy and that wasn't right, but I just didn't have an answer. And so I used that same approach, the taonga that I'd been given through kohanga, kura, upbringing, whakapapa, to help unpack, trace the whakapapa back to when I was maybe 6, 7 years old and learning about the world, making sense of it, and started to really weave together more meaningful, solid threads of what it means to be me now, even as a mama, as a writer, all the different things that I do, I'm still me without any of that as well. And so probably a little insight into how I approach that hinengaro as a, almost like whenua, tending to it, cultivating, pulling out the weeds that may have been planted with good intentions, but don't serve the kind of person I want to be or how I want to feel moving forward.
Kia ora, and we'll unpack lots of that.
There's
lots to unpack in that. I want to come to you, Rikki, with the similar pātai of what, hauora o te hinengaro means, but also maybe kind of zeroing in on hinengaro and that kupu and what that represents and where the concept of that word comes from. So, kia koe hoa.
Beautiful pātai, eh? Kei te mihi ate kia koutou mai I tēnei pō e haere mai. Ki te nohi wanganui a koutou, I roto I tēnei whare, he whare taonga. Yes, I grew up, just to give context, I grew up in this little place called Te Hauke. Now, if you haven't heard of it, it's a place that you'll blink and you'll miss it. And in Te Hauke there's a urupa, or cemetery, a marae on one side of the urupa, a church on the other side of the urupa. We grew up in this little community. It was probably about 30 tamariki that we went to school. The shop was only open Monday, Wednesday and Friday between 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. So it gives you a bit of a context where I grew up. And I grew up gardening. That was my main mahi with my crow and my kuia. And growing up, you get a lot of time to ponder and think about life when you're weeding a garden that's 12 acres long. And I always thought there must be more to life than this. And my crow wanted me to grow up in gardening. And I suppose identity was the biggest thing, because we grew up around the marae. We were taught who we are. We learned the whakapapa. And it's played a massive contribution into my life of where we are now. And so when I think of hinengaro, it cannot go, it's so interconnected with everything else. Wairua, tinana, ngākau, whānau, whenua. But as I was reflecting, we had a kōrero a couple of weeks ago around hinengaro and a pūrākau that was taught to me, and it's a pūrākau, not the pūrākau, and there's many other pūrākau. But it goes back to a kōrero of when the atua were at battle, and kei te pakanga ngā atua te pairangi, and kei te whawhai ana rātou, and coming at this time of the year with Matariki was, one of the kōrero is out of that battle, that pakanga, ka puta mai o tangohia ngā mata o tāwhiri mātia, place these, his tāwhiri mātia's eyes, crushed them and put them onto the kite umo rangi nui. But there was another kōrero that there was an atua by the name of Hene Te Ua. And Hene Te Ua seen that this battle was going on. Ka puta mai ngā roimata, ka heke mai ngā ua, and the ua fell and continued to fall. And this rain continued to fall. And these atua said, if Hene Te Ua continues to cry, or ka puta mai ngā roimata, we're going to flood this earth, papa tuanaku. And Hene Te Ua gave everything to stop the battle of ngā atua. And in doing so, gave every essence until the point that Hene Te Ua collapsed and was exhausted and lay there. And these atua stopped battling and they came to attend to Hene Te Ua, their atua hine. And in doing so, Hene Te Ua was lying there lifeless. So they picked up Hene Te Ua and they took Hene Te Ua to this maunga called Maunganui o Tawa. And this Maunganui was up on in one of the rangis called Rangi Tamaku. And then they put Hene Te Ua there under the care of Tamanui Te Rā. And Tamanui Te Rā's light, o ka puta mai ngā mati wood, was used to heal Hene Te Ua. And they put this korowai, Tāne put this korowai over Hene Te Ua to put into sort of like a reed spike care, if you can put it that way, into this care so no one would interrupt Hene Te Ua. And because Hene Te Ua gave everything ko ngaro ngā mea katoa, there was nothing left. And in that process, ka huri tana ingoa ki Hene ngaro. Hene that gave everything to stop the battles of these atua. And under the care of Hene Te Ua, Tamanui Te Rā, aroha mai, the warmth and restored the Māori back into hinengaro now. And hinengaro then transformed into another atua, became alive again and received the Māori, then transformed into Hene Pukohurangi. And Hene Pukohurangi is the atua of mist and fog. And so as this happened, these atua, the atua and the Pautiri Ao, which is the winds and the rain, tāwhiri māte, and they said, well, what shall we do with Hene Pukohurangi? And they said, we'll give Hene Pukohurangi, the mist and the fog, to Papa Tuanaku as a korowai. And when you see the fog and the mist on Papa Tuanaku or in the ngahere, as a tohu that tāwhiri māte and the winds are not around. And so when we think of hinengaro, it's not just one process, but there's multiple different transformations that we go through. And I suppose when we look at it from a pūrākau and a cultural aspect, we've often had times where we've gone through that Hene Te Ua, those tears and that rain. There's times that we become hinengaro, we lose our hinengaro, goes through this lost state. But as we grow and transform, comes back as Hene Pukohurangi and becomes this koha and a korowai to those that work around, others in their family and their community, that you become a gift to them. Come on.
Oh, haere tono. No, Rawi, and as you were talking about these atua wahine, well, just happens that Hana Tapiata has written a book about atua wahine, but a lot of these pūrākau that we're talking about and how we connect to them, a lot of the ones around our wahine were not told to us. They were, obviously, as in Ani Makaire's seminal work and amazing work around colonising our narratives. And so, we think of the likes of Hine Tua, Hinengaro, but also what comes to mind is Moana Tuitiripo, the atua wahine of our wetlands, who was actually there to keep the peace between her bloody brothers, Sangaroa and Tāne, from bloody fighting. But what does she give back to us? She gives us these beautiful, beautiful wetlands and restores and filters our way. And then you've got Hine Pūtehue, who sits with us now. And so I want to throw to you, Hana, around, when you chose and when you went through the journey of writing this book, the power of these pūrākau around our atua wahine, how powerful they are for us, not only as Māori, but as wahine as well, to find, like you say, that connection with ourselves and with our whakapapa.
So very fortunate to grow up with pūrākau for breakfast, lunch and dinner, but not until recently did I reflect on them and be like, hey, there's where the girls at? And even just as an exercise, the most common pūrākau from te ao Māori are probably like the separation of papa and ranginui. Papa is mentioned at the beginning. Piritahi, a papa rau ko rangi, they get separated, and then she doesn't feature again in the rest of that story. Kōrero about Mahuika and Maui. She's portrayed as an old, grumpy, witchy-poo auntie nan, unkept, kākahu taratara o ngā makawe, so this visual identity that we have of atua wahine is really not aspirational, or you don't really want to see yourself in them, compared to Tāne, who separated his parents and brought about te ao marama, Tangaroa and the amazing things. Tūmatauenga, strong, Hinetitama, embarrassed and so ashamed that her husband was also her father, which was common because that's what was happening at the time, procreation and proliferation across Papatuanuku. So anyway, that's another wānanga. But so ashamed, couldn't bear to face that, so she ran away. Sometimes that pūrākau is interpreted as suicide. And so no empowering stories that feature atua wahine, even for myself, being from Te Arawa, Te Hekenga Rangi, Pū Haurangi, the god who came down and slept with, joint, is that appropriate? Who fell in love with Te Kurei Monoa, who was betrothed to another, Kia roa, Ngā Toroirangi's wife, who has no agency of her own, succumbed to the temptations of tamate kapua. Just in so many different examples, from pūrākau to whakapapa, even hinemoa and to tānekai. Greatest love story ever, mai tupuna. But the wahine, or the feminine characters in these stories, for want of a better term, have no agency. They're not centred in the pūrākau, and so it's not a surprise that when we, especially as wahine, but as Indigenous, as just people existing in this capitalistic, extractive society, when we're trying to look to examples to help form our sense of identity and belonging, the examples are not there, or they suck. And my two tamariki that are in te ao marama, he kōtiro, and I wanted better for them. I wanted better for myself, not feeling at home or really tau and safe in my own hinengaro, in my own tinana, inspired by Animi Kaire's mahi, Dr. Ngahuia Murphy, and her reframing of mahuika specifically, and her mahi around ikura, our menstrual cycles, fire, Aroha Yates-Smith with her revolutionary thesis from almost 30 years ago. Just reframing those stories, and they share a whole world of perspective. And I forgot what
Are you,
the
great, you're
key
honourable.
parts
You're honourable.
Keep going.
Just keep going. We're just talking about the power of those stories around our atua wahine, and the connection with ourselves and the connection to our.
Yeah, and so probably last thing I'll add, oh, that's where I was, is how prevalent they are in our world. And we don't even notice it because we don't know their stories, we may not know their names, their stories weren't preserved or valued. But Hine Pūtehue, atua of gourds, she was part of the pakanga atua pūrākau as well. And that pūrākau is that as the siblings were fighting in the chaos of this new world, she started to sing. And it was a quiet waiata that one by one each of tīrātua stopped what they were doing to focus in. And she helped regulate, calm, and restore that balance. Kia hohoi te rongo transformed the pain, the confusion, the grief that they had transitioned from Te Pō into a new world that was unfamiliar, so that they could discharge, let it go, and go well into Te Ao Marama. Another pūrākau, not the pūrākau there. But to grow hui, you need all the other atua as well. Hine teiua, te ihoragi, atua of rain, papatuanuku, hine rau whārangi, atua of growth. Like it's such a dynamic interaction of atua that are embodied in hui, as an example. This kohatu is from Parehauraki. It's got some kokowai in there as well, but that's hine tū parimaunga, papatuanuku, hine ahuone. Any adornments, if you have pounamu or taonga, whakakai, hine tuahoanga, the story, the regional iwi hapu stories as well. And we are immersed in the mātauranga and the presence of atua, but because those stories are still waiting to be remembered and shared, it just takes a little bit like wānanga, like this biraranga hau, to remember and recalibrate to that wisdom, which can provide that stable footing. Aha koa te ngaro, aha koa te kohu, aha koa te pō, to help us feel safe and secure as we navigate whatever that looks like.
Beautiful. As the Tanya on the stage, keen to hear your whakaaro around this kōrero e hoa.
Oh, love it, hey. I think growing up in a whare with very strong wahine, my mum and then my kuia, and my karawa really goes, wherever my wife lays her head, I will lay. Wherever she says we will go, we will go. And so that's the whakaaro that was implanted in me, and it goes back to their whakatauki, mā te whenua, mā te wahine ka mate ai te tangata, is that we treasure our wahine, we treasure our whenua, and that they are one and the same, and that we give our life for that. So that's the type of upbringing that I was brought in, and sometimes I fell in that, by listening to my wife and my daughter. But that's the whakaaro, and our atua wahine plays a significant. I grew up with them at home, with my nan, would tell stories. And as she got older, she started to get mate ware. But because she was on repeat there, she continued to tell the stories over and over. And the rest of my whānau would be, my cousins and that, they'll be, and Nan, you already said that. But I would just sit and listen, and she'll tell the stories, and she'll talk about her kuia, and tell the story of her kuia, and she'll always tell the stories of all the wahine, or the mana wahine in Kahununu, for example, like Rongo Mai Papa, and the connection through to Tūhaurangi, but also the connection through to ruapane. And then she'll tell the story of mahinarangi. And so you had all these powerful kōrero coming through, and so for us connecting to Papatūānuku was around our kaimara and our gardening. And gardening still plays a big significant role. Even though we don't grow those big gardens, we would, 12 acres of kumara, and there's only 3 of us in the whare. And you had 5 acres of riwai. And then you had 9 acres of pumpkin, and it was just my crow, myself and my nan, and my dad would be there. And we had the shed full of kai. And the whakaaro was whoever visited always went home with a bag of kumara, a paukina, a pumpkin and riwai. And we never went hungry, as you can tell with me sitting here. But we always made sure that there was kai. And a big part of that was it was very therapeutical working in the garden and getting our hands into Papatūānuku. And that's why you see a lot of up in the Taitokero and over in Ngā Te Awa, they have the gardens. And gardens is a big part of working with rangatahi. It's working with whānau that have that challenge our hinengaro, that getting their hands in the dirt and into into Papatūānuku has this therapeutical effect. And that's what I love about that. And I was actually, as Hana was talking, about hene pū te hui. Hene te ua, hina te iwa. All of our toi, our mahi toi comes off that. But all of these, in our kōrero, these atua whakapapa back to a whetū. And the name of that whetū is called hinengaro mo. And so it was such a tiny star, but had a significant contribution to a lot of these atua wahine. From hinengaro mo, from the whetū, we have hene pū te hui, we have hina te iwa, we have hine tohu, we have mahuika. They all, and it all links back to the stars, which then brings us to that kōrero, tuiki te rangi, tuiki te whenua. And that in our cultural connectedness is that the stars and the whenua are together. And tuiki te mona is that they triangulate together. And our hauora sits between those three elements, the whetū, the sun, the moon, the stars, the trees, the whenua, and also the mourner. And what we have to do when we're working with whānau is finding out which one of these taonga do they whānau work with. They might not want to do gardening, but they might love diving, or they might love more tiatia or kapahaka. And there's so much plethora of hauora in all of our arts, our mahi toi, that it's about us connecting them to the right one, that they can bring their hauora to their hinengaro.
Can you share a story or an experience of when you've seen it in real time transforming someone when they've had that connection through your mahi?
Yeah. Oh, I'm trying to think of one off the top
put you
of
on
my
the
head. Classic example with our rangatai. And one of the things that even our kaumātua and koe, I'll use it because this last week we have this kaupapa called Kai and Kōrero. And it's where a group of our kaumātua come in. And it doesn't matter if it's rangatahi or whoever it is, but when they got into the gardens, they become these little children. They're not little children, but they become childlike. They become young again. I'm trying to tidy up my... making sure I find the right word they might be watching. Calling us
young
little children. They become young at heart. And, when we ran this, they didn't want to be there. They were just... the kōrero they had was that we were just waiting to come mate to die. And every day we woke up, it was, I'm still here. But when we started this wānanga, and we started their youthfulness came back. A lot of them were walkers and they were struggling to get into the wānanga. Now they're alive, they're walking, and you've seen that transformation over a few months' time, going from, in terms of their hinengaro not belonging, to where they found a connection. And we've taken them, and one of those things that we took them to was the kai gardens. And when they got their hands in there, I've seen it with my father-in-law at home. You know, he moved in with us, but they said, there's not, you know, they said, if he moves in, he won't, he's going to die soon. And I was like, well, just move in with us. And today is his 85th, I think it's his 85th birthday.
Gee.
And this is going 6 years ago, he moved in with us. And I go to my wife, you told me.
Hey, you're being...
Oh, gee, be careful.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Yeah. But what it was is that he wanted to work in the garden. And when he started growing his own kaimara and he got his hands back in the dirt, it did something to him. Even the doctors were going, we don't know what happened, but we said because Papa Tuanuku has these amazing healing qualities. If we get our hands in them, and even today, like it's raining, he's out there just plotting away. We're like, Dad, get back inside, it's raining. And he's like, no, he just cannot go each day without the... And that's the power of gardening. Or it doesn't matter if it's gardening, or it could be diving, it could be fishing, it could be whatever, but find what works for you.
And I think, you know, that connection to the taiao, we're so in this busy world, busy life, trying to do everything, and when we slow down and actually make that connection with our whenua, with the moana, things start to kind of come to light and come a little bit slower. Talking about, you know, I guess on the same role of transformational experiences, Hana, I'm sure you've had many people who've read your book and a lot of kōrero around the motu, around what it has done to a lot of people to kind of learn about those narratives. For you, are there anything that comes to mind around how it can be transformative?
Probably the main one that I can articulate while we're in this space together, and I touched on it before, is how collaborative and how interconnected atua are. Atua wahine, atua tāne, ngā atua katoa. But I grew up on the versions of pūrākau, where it was like tāne mahuta, forest, tūmatawenga, war, tagaroa, ocean. And they were like separate, almost isolated, but that was their domain, and they were related, but by whakapapa or by genealogy only. But then I was hapu with my second baby while I was writing the manuscript. The due date for the baby was a week before the due date for the manuscript. But so being hapu and thinking about the different atua and how they're expressed within each of us. And so the kōrero that I follow is that hine ahuone, as she was being formed at Kurawaka by tāne, each of the atua gave an expression of themselves to her. And metaphysically, physically as well, our parasympathetic nervous system from hine pūtehue, respiratory system, tāwhiri mātea, para weranui, the liquids in our tinana, para whenua mea, tangaroa mā, and so on and so forth. And because she was the first of tira tangata, he wahine, hoki, the first. And we trace our whakapapa to that pūrākau, the same is true for us. So we have, and this is the kōrero I follow again, but from 7 to 140 atua, depending on the kōrero you have, exist within us. And so specific to that experience of writing the book and being hapu, wainui atea, Ranginui's first wife in some pūrākau, but the vast, expansive ocean, the waters from above as the amniotic fluid that incubates and grows pipi. Mahuika, te ahi o te whare tangata, what keeps that womb fertile and able to nurture and grow life. Hineti weiwa, the cyclical nature that menstrual cycles follow, weaving together threads of whakapapa as babies growing. Hinenui te pō, the darkness, the safety of the darkness to grow and to nurture for 9 to 10 months. Papa tuanuku, te ukaipo, the original home, the nurturer. Like, it was just such an obvious whakaro or perspective to have once I could identify those atua. I was like, yeah, they're so, they're not isolated, they're not their own, like they have their own domain, but they're probably more like a project manager, delegating different things.
Mediator.
Yeah, like there's so many, most of the atua exist within papa. Hinetu Parimaunga, the goddess of cliffs, and Kohatu, Parawhenua mea, springs up from within Papa Tuanuku, but they're all their own atua and own expressions as well. So that multiple truths coexist in Papa because, and so it's natural for us to have conflicting feelings, to feel lost, but also confident or assured that the next step is going somewhere is leading somewhere that we want to go. Or maybe not, but we can get ourselves out of it. So probably that would be one. And then the other is from people who have shared with me is that like, oh, I know those atua, actually. I just didn't know their name or I didn't know that was their pūrākau, but I know parawhenua mea. I know hine ukurangi. I actually have work with pigments and art and all these things. So it's how much we already know with the kōrero and that pukapuka as an affirmation, or maybe just other threads, like, that's how they fit in the whakapapa. That links, I remember that name from Nan or Auntie's ramblings, but this is where it fits. So it's how much we already know and how dynamic and collaborative they are.
And bringing it now and how we live our lives now, right? And we're talking before, you were talking about the stars and the connectedness, and obviously as Matariki, because of we know the constellation that's becoming more well known by all of our babies, Māori, non-Māori, everybody knows about these stars. And like a personal story about a star was when I named my daughter, I named her Pikiarero, which is one of the native clematis flowers. And because her dad and I really loved it, and I loved that flower, I love rongoa. Anyway, so we gave her that name, and I was talking to Rangi Matamua about it. He goes, that's a star, Ray. I was like, what? Felt instantly guilty. I was like, oh, should I have known that? I was like, yeah, totally, no. He goes, no. And then he said that, kōrero, he was like, it's all connected, so Pukiariro, Puawananga, and Rākaumasi, there were 3 daughters of Puanga and Rehua, in one kōrero, that they had their children. And Pukiariro, obviously, climbing, the shape of it is in a tongue that climbs, and so it climbs the rākau, and that's how it came down. And with Puawananga, the other native clematis flower, and so then that's how they're personified, and they mark what we call spring, but part of the kaupika of when spring is of that particular time. And so the connection of stars. So there's so many stars we don't know about, and I got shamed. No jokes. But for you, the understanding now of these stars and how crucial that is to not just understanding Matariki, but so much more, especially with maramataka, which is your mahi.
Yeah, no, the stars play I think when we look at maramataka, we often only just looking at it from one perspective. It's only talking about te marama. And the maramataka is when we look at it says, often they say it's a good, he whiro, he whero te marama, he pōkino. Whero's is not a dark night. Or no, whero's a dark night and mischief lurks in the darkness. And I think back to in our tipuna, you know, one of the biggest challenges you had, if you got it wrong, and they got their gardens wrong, and the kai didn't grow, they would starve. And quite interestingly, now when we have a look and we look at it today, a lot of us don't grow, you know, there's many whānau that don't grow their own kai mara. And in the world, the challenge of that is we became dependent on our new pātaka, you know, our pātaka now is called pack and save and countdown, and we've become so dependent on them. But growing the garden, or following maramataka is one of the key indicators. I always ask people if they are following the maramataka. Hey, cool. Well, what have you growing? Have you gone fishing? Have you gone eeling? Because that for me is you're living it. Because sometimes what we're doing, and there's nothing wrong with this, is you know, it's a bad day, it's a good day, it's a slow day. It's a high day. But for me, it's like if you're living it, you would have broccoli growing in your garden. You would have spinach growing and, you know, and having kai at this time of the year, you'd have your deep greens growing now. And that's a real good key indicator if you're living maramataka in terms of our tupuna kōrero, because there's two aspects. You've got the application of it with the kai and marama, and then we have this cultural connection to it. And I think we've switched more to the cultural connection, and then we've been really hunting and thirsting for mātauranga. And one of those things, and it's absolutely amazing when you look at the maramataka, you have all these names. And in all of these names, there's a whakapapa and there's a connection, and it's beautiful to connect to. And that's what I think we're thirsty for, is that knowledge hidden within the maramataka. When you talk about whiro, and you talk about otiria, and you talk about ohoata and uenuku, they've got a beautiful pūrākau which gives us our cultural connection. But there's the real, got to get your hands dirty type of stuff. And that is the growing the garden. That is the going out and actually practicing it. If they say it is a good day to go fishing, we'll actually go and have a go at fishing. And putting that in all, to go into the rivers and watching the tuna heke, or the heke tuna, sorry, and watching those tuna, I think as these new apps, and I've always been like, not anti-app, but I am like, you know, I'm like, we need to turn those off. And I always tell whānau, well, what app should I go? And I said, walk out your front door, look up.
What's that?
And that is the greatest app our atua have created for us. And that's my wero, is go outside of your whare. Look at the whetū. You know, this is a great time at this time of year, being Matariki. Just a bit of, who hasn't seen Matariki in here, you know? You don't have to put your hand up. But we talk about Matariki, there's talking about it, and there's actually going through the experience of watching it rise, participating in the hautapu, is completely different from reading it in the puka and looking at pictures and hearing about it. And my challenge, is take the opportunity this year, if you haven't, to go on Friday morning and let's say, and there's an iwi or there's a community running it, go to it. You might not know anyone, and it's okay because they can't see you and you can't see them. Is go there and listen and be a part of the experience. And maramataka is exactly the same. Our tipuna said, the parts that are missing from that, because maramataka is all about the moon, it's missing the whetū kōrero, with the star kōrero, because with every star, is a season. So Matariki being winter takarua. Then you have another star that represents another month and another star. So it's cool, it's absolutely awesome that we're celebrating Matariki. What the community doesn't know, we've got another 13 other stars that we've got to roll out. You know, we've got our koanga stars, our spring stars, which is for kahunuku and for kahurangi, or mahuru. And so those have stars that have ceremonies with them around gardening as well. So we've only just scratching into the surface, and I'm loving it, the mātauranga that's been shared out there. So the wero is learn the cultural stuff, learn the whakapapa in these names, but also do the actual practical application. And, you know, you can get a bucket, just put some dirt in it and drop a seed in there, and then voila, you got a hui growing. Or you can put...
What are those hui?
Yeah, like,
Not any I've tried to grow.
It's not that easy, no?
Or corn. Or start with broccoli, it's hearty as. Spinach is hearty as. Start with something that will give you a victory and a win.
Yeah.
What we end up doing, we get so overcome with this, like, wow, then we go and try and plant this whole huge garden. We clear everything, and then after a month, we call po te hau. We run out of steam, and we can't be bothered. So I always tell whānau, get a box or a bucket and start there, and then just grow from there.
Hana, I want to hear your views on that, especially around kind of the apps and, don't want to cause a battle, but like, you know, it is a gateway, maybe, right? It's a gateway into this knowledge, but how do we ensure people are taking that next step? Because sharing our mātauranga is quite it's a scary thing to do. It's a thing that can be quite guarded, and we've got to strike the balance of sharing for, education and for ensuring that these narratives are being heard, but also staying guarded in another way for our own kind of mātauranga. Your whakaaro on that.
Oh, yeah. I'm old school.
I love it.
Our tupuna were innovators, and I believe that the tools that they used when they arrived here are different to the tools that they used in Hawaii. And we can see that with the kākahu or the textile, the environment or the atua, and the way that they express themselves here, a lot different to Rarotonga and Tahiti and Hawaii. Why did we leave?
I know, bro. Why did we leave?
So their environment required them to refine their technology so they could survive, whether it was for textile, for making whare, the marae here, different to taputapu Aotea or Raiatea. The crops that can grow here, different to where they came from. And so adapting, I don't want to say improving, but adapting to make specific tools for their specific environment, relating that to the apps. It's a tool that we can utilise to enhance our connection, but tautoko i ngā kōrero a Rikki, a tool, not the tool, and doesn't beat actually getting your hands in the paru, feeling what Papatūānuku feels like in this part of the whenua compared to Rotorua, to Te Hauke, to down south. Koira te mahi matua. And it's about your connection to those atua, or to your environment, so that you can get to know, okay, no, actually my hui can't just be put in this in a bucket because Rotorua is freezing as, even though we've got the geothermal activity. It's really cold, so it doesn't like.
Yep, it's too cold.
Look at the soil. So it needs a little bit more, but I wouldn't know that if I didn't experiment and try that approach. And then my experience, or, regionally, would be probably just slightly different to warmer climates or up in the north, winterless summer, winterless north. And utilising maramataka, ngā kaupeka and other tohu in te taiao to help guide what that relationship with atua, with the taiao, with kai, can be like.
I doubt.
Yeah.
Just like a real small example of kaupeka. Who in here knows what a kaupeka is? Raise your hand. So kaupeka is essentially our seasons there. Do you want to do that explanations? Because I'm not the expert. What are kaupeka? What are our kaupeka?
Kaupeka are the monthly cycles in the seasonal cycles, and actually kaupeka is a sibling of tāne and them. And kaupeka was an atua that is an atua that gave everything. And when I guess they gave everything, was the only atua that sacrificed kaupeka's life for a bigger kaupapa. And so when we think of kaupeka, and it's one of our sayings we say in Mahi Atua and Papa Mark uses kaupeka ki te kaupapa, means you're all in. And so when you go kaupeka ki te kaupapa, when you're going into gardening, you're going to go all in because you have to watch it. And so these kaupeka is the 12 seasons, or depending on who you talk to, it's either 12 or 13. The 13 seasonal cycles, and kaupeka is the atua and the governance of time. And so when you look at Matariki will sit under this, and Matariki and Puanga will sit under this kaupeka. Then you go into the next kaupeka, which is takarua. Then you go into the next kaupeka, and there's Puanga hori. You go into this other kaupeka, which is whakāhu nuku or whakāhu rangi. So it's talking about the order of time through this atua of kaupeka, and that's the kōrero that we learned.
Yeah, because I learned kaupeka from Papa Rao, from Ririata Makiha, and one of the ones and the reason why I feel like it keeps on coming up tonight, but yesterday or the day before, it was the first frost on the window of our car, and my partner was like, oh, the frost is on the window, and I was like, oh, wiroi te nenehi, which is a kaupeka, and Papa Rao always said, when you see the frost, that's when the kaupeka is shifting, and so the kaupeka is not like our seasons, that we say, 1st of December is summer, and blah, 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 like we notice, you've got to notice and be connected, like we're talking about to the tile, to recognise when the kaupeka is shifting, and that the atua has been like, this is this time now. So I think this is a good segue to talk to your taonga that you guys chose. So obviously with the kai kōrero, you got to go down to the archives. Is that right? Yes. How was that experience? Amazing. And so they each chose some taonga to bring out tonight. Who they're here with us. So I just want to go. We've got slides. And so the first one that's come up is the ko tēnei tō. This is one that you chose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
So up here we got just.
You can stand up if you want. Well, no, you don't want to.
No, stand up.
These chairs are not.
These chairs will start sliding on me. But I feel quite comfortable to sit.
Ka baka, noho tonu.
But if you look over there on the top one, there you see that long core. And the core was a digging implement. But this one here, by looking at it, looks more like a ceremonial core. Which was, because you can tell it's got the long blade, it's got all the whakairo on it. Our traditional ones, we would use them for digging. It had a foot peg on it, and you would start digging. And our kōrero, growing up, ko is, and now it's quite interesting, this is where we get these little nuances in names of whetū and whetū and planets. So at the moment, you might get up in the morning, and that bright whetū out there is called kōpuiti, or kōpū. But for us, they call Venus, we call that one tāwera. And then kōpū is the star Jupiter. And Jupiter is around in the springtime, and we call that kōpū. Kōpū nui, kōpū roa. And the kōrero is when you see kōpū, that's when we start to kō, or to dig, into the pū of Papa Tuanuku to start planting our seeds. in there. So that's our kōrero from back home. So you might hear tomorrow on the whetū au out there, Venus is kōpuiti. But for us up in Kahungunu, kōpū is around springtime, which is Jupiter. And so I love the kō. I've got a couple of them that I use, but I still use a shovel. And it just feels cool when you're using something that our tipuna made and shaped it all up. And so I brought this down because I just went from the list, and anytime there's a call, that trumps anything for me.
Che, rawe. Okay, the next, is that the close-up of it, eh? Oh, yeah. No, you can't, it's okay. It's the close-up of it.
Yeah, that's the top of it, to give you a bit of thing.
Che, mean. Hana, this was your beautiful taonga choice, kahuhuruhuru. Could you tell us a bit about your choice?
Yeah. So very fortunate to descend from a strong textile, mahi o te wharepora, ngā taonga mataurarau ko Niwareka, with Te Puia, NZ Māori Arts and Crafts Institute in Rotorua, as well as a really strong tourism history. I think New Zealand tourism originated from in Rotorua. Might need to check that. we'll go with it. Yeah, here first. But this kahuhuruhuru belonged to Makiriti Papakura. She's been in the news lately. Over 100 years later, she'll be receiving her posthumous doctorate degree from Oxford. The first, again, first Indigenous, first wahine Māori to attend Oxford, and finally being recognised for her mahi. She passed away weeks before she had to defend her thesis, but it was turned into a book, The Old Time Māori, by one of her friends and colleagues over in Oxford, and the whānau are travelling over there in September to receive that tohu, with a few other commemorations as well. But this was so special to have seen down in the archives, let alone have permission to bring it out. Hei kina ki ngā kōrero I tēnei pō. So many correlations to Makiriti's story. Her thesis that was turned into the book, I think was the first time Māori or Indigenous ethnographer gave an account on their own people and their own experiences. And just like with the kōrero shared here tonight, how important it is to tell our stories with our own kupu from our own perspectives. She did that 100 years ago. And although not a direct mokopuna, he uri tonu no Ngāti Wāhi ao, no te whakarewarewa I Rotorua. And so feel very honoured to have that kākahu and to have Makiriti here with us this evening, speak life, more pūrākau into that korowai and that kākahu as well. And I just love how with all our taonga and all our different reo Māori, like my main reo is to write. Tried singing, didn't quite work out.
There you on that.
Which is very hard in Te Arawa. Very hard to not be a good or like just averagely okay singer. Kapahaka Central there.
At the moment.
That was one of the first questions I asked. Hana, do you sing and I'll play behind you?
Yeah, but I'll claim, he hononga hoki ki whakaue, current reigning champs, Te Matatini. But we all have our different skill sets, and how mātauranga is just encoded into our taonga in different ways. And then when we can bring them out, we can add to their stories, they add to ours. And it just grows that puna even more. So, yeah, nā makiriti papakura tēnei, uri o tūhaurangi Ngāti Wāhi ao.
And there's a hononga with one of your taonga on the table with that tipuna.
which is the pukaia down the end there with the lashing around it. I was doing a wānanga around Tonga Pūro down in Ngāti Porou. And this kaumātua, we were talking before, and he goes, I've got something for you. And I go, oh, yep. And I thought he was like going to bring a pie or something.
Kai.
You know, some food. And he goes, I'll be back soon. I was just going to go down the road. And he come back and he brought back this pukaia. And he said, and he's standing there. I was like, oh, have you come to play, Matua? And he goes, no, this is for you. And I go, oh, stumped, because to get a taonga like that. And he goes, you have to make me a promise. And I said, yep. And I said, yep, what is it? And he said, you must never change the name of this pukaia. And I go, ka pai, and he goes, the name of this pukaia is called Makareta Papakura, Maggie. And I was just like, no, I'll never ever change. And by that time I didn't really know who Makareta Papakura was. I was like, ka pai, I'll keep that name. And then over the last 2 years, just bumping into all this kōrero and all these pūrākau around Makareta. And this pukaia was carved in whakarewarewa by Ralph Hammond, who was the artist that koha this. And he said, wherever you go, make sure the sound of Makareta is permeated through the world. And so when I heard this kahu huruhuru was coming out, I was like, oh, I'll bring my Makareta down to bring the pukaia down, because that is knowing that she wore this was hers, is that bringing it even closer and getting that connection with this korowai. Then when we take it out into the world, we're playing, and it's been a metre or so from the korowai that Makareta wore. And that's why he brought it down here. Down there, and it's made out of pounamu, it's made out of wood. It's a beautiful taonga as well.
Stunning. Yeah. Well, she is here. She is here.
Yeah.
Some other taonga that were brought down, and I think it's so beautiful for these talks, bringing these taonga down and bringing them out of the storage, the archives, and bringing them to life for us to be with, is so important for them to keep their pūrākau living and alive. Living and alive, goodness me. It's only Wednesday, whānau. Anyway, next taonga, Rākau Atua, tell us a bit about this e hoa and why you chose this one.
Yeah, well, it was on the list. Oh, yeah, that one will be cool. But that one here is, these are called Atua Rākau. And this is also around gardening too. And so when they would do their karakia in spring, and we're talking about koanga, and we're in Takaru, We've come into the first phases of Wero Te Ninihi, the frosts have hit, and we're already talking about kaimara. Because one of the things around watching Matariki was to determine the activities for the upcoming season. And so you'll look at these whetū tipua, nuku tipua rangi. And what makes these rākau so special is that these atua, they're often named, one could be rongo, it could be around gardens, haume, tiki tāne. But what they would do is, after we do all of our rituals and our karakia, is that these rākau would then be placed into papa tuanuku, and they would hold the mauri of that garden. Or it could be a kōhatu as well. A kōhatu was placed into the garden, and that kōhatu was to hold the mauri of your garden. So it might be something that if you're not having a successful garden, is find yourself a kōhatu and to say a karakia and plant that in the ground. And a mauri is so important because a mauri holds the purpose. It holds the purpose, and when you give these karakia and these rituals, it holds the purpose. This purpose of this rākau was so that the garden flourished. And whenever you think, even anything in life, you have to have in one of our wānanga, at mahi atu as well, is the mauri is the ahika, or the fire. And that fire is to stay alive, that whole wānanga, and it holds and binds that whole wānanga together. When you think of a whare nui, there's a kōhatu that is placed so that the mauri of the whare stays alive and well. And even with our own lives, it's like, what is our mauri? It could be a pounamu, it could be something that gives us our purpose and reminds us of our role. And when we fulfill that role, at the end of that garden, when it's finished, then those mauri would be removed, and then they would do a karakia, and we would bury those because it served its kaupapa. And so next year, then we'll have another one, and then we will plant another mauri to hold the mauri of that kaimara. So these are really symbolic and real powerful ways of reminding us to weed that garden, to water that garden. It keeps us bound to the well-being of that kaimara. It also we can use in our lives, it keeps us bound to the purpose and the goals or the tohi that we've given for that purpose and that role we have. When we think of tāne and getting ngā kete o te wānanga, tāne had to go through different stages, from rangi nui to rangi tamaku, and that a tohi, and it was given a tohi to give it purpose for that journey. When it was completed, a pure was done to lift that. And then when the new direction came in, they would perform another tohi, so that there was always a mauri and a purpose for that haerenga. And that's something that we don't do too often these days. And that's one of the things when we work with our whānau is, what is your purpose? What is going to be your purpose of this journey? And these rākau are symbolisms of that. So when we're having a whānau and they don't know what, let's plan the A to B journey, and let's give it here's a kōhatu, and you hold on to this kōhatu for the week. And when you come back, you tell me how that journey was with that kōhatu. And you tell me everything, that connection with that kōhatu. So there's many different ways that we can do it. And so this is just a symbolism of maintaining the mauri and the purpose of the kaupapa.
Beautiful, stunning. I need a lot of those in my mara. No, I need them. I haven't had them. That's probably why my mara's not bloody growing. And the last taonga that you've chosen and that you've brought with us tonight, e hoa whakapakoko. Tell us a bit about that one.
I have to have a look. Oh, gee. Oh, yeah, same thing. That's the same. This one over here on the end. It's exactly the same thing. It would be used from my knowledge, would be used in the kaimara. It's exactly the same. It holds the purpose and the mauri of the garden.
Stunning.
Yeah.
Stunning.
So you have ones that are just a plain rākau, or it could be just a kōhatu. Then you have other ones that are carved.
Flesh, love it.
Yeah.
Ka pai. Oh, ka pai whānau. So I know that in the promo we talked about questions, Q&A. We might not do that because there's something else that I think you'd probably prefer. So what we're going to do is Rikki and Hana are going to lead us in some meditation with using his taonga pūoro. A little bit of a sound bath, a little bit of a mid-week reset before we head into the weekend to mark Matariki. I'm thinking also, we're just going to have our little interlude hui. I was thinking that after that, maybe you just whakakapi at that point with a karakia. And so right now are probably going to be our parting words before we go into that space. So I guess anything before we move into that part of the evening, anything you want to any taonga, any koha you want to give to our audience, especially in this time of Matariki, under the kind of the kaupapa of hauora o te hinengaro. Hana, I'll pass to you first.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Probably to build off the rākau atua and the whakapakoko and I've got my kōhatu that was very light grey at the start. That's been soaking up. The mauri.
Well done.
of my kōrero, but in a very similar way, and that having an object of some sort, whether it's a taonga that we adorn ourselves with, or something that we carry around, or something that stays in the places that we love, is a focus of our energy, because I like the layer of whakaaro that it's easier to focus that intention indirectly. Like when we focus it on ourselves, it can feel quite strange or selfish, or all the other perceptions that we layer onto that. But when we focus it onto toka mauri, to a taonga, to rākau, or even to tamariki, or our whānau, it's like an indirect way of focusing our energy, our aroha, our intention, that keeps us accountable in return, because we aren't operating in isolation just for ourselves, even though we might be made to feel like that sometimes, in choosing what's best for us, or what keeps our hinengaro well, our tinana balanced and calm, having something atua personified I can put in my pocket, I can keep with me, I can just soak in mauri. Just helps to shift that thinking and make it an indirect kind of demonstration of connection to atua, to tupuna, to whakapapa, mātauranga, which is ultimately that connection to ourselves. So I would encourage you to, find something or a special something that doesn't mean anything to anybody else, but you love it. And whether it's for a week, for the year, or the 7-year cycle, whatever you want to follow, the kaupeka, as a entry level kind of practice to focus attention, set your mauri and energy, and all that good stuff.
Beautiful. That's so good. He koha too. Kaya koe hoa, your koha too?
Oh, my koha. Hey, my son, I don't think he'll ever watch this with me on here, but he had a real connection to kohatu. And no matter where he went, he always came back with kohatu and little rocks. And we used to have hundreds of them in his room. And I suppose that was what kept him grounded. And so you find what works. It could be, just walking through a ngahere and there's a feather. And it's things that just call out, they call out to you. And those are those things that you can hold on to. But I think when we look at hauora there is no right answer. We often trying to get the answer, but it's a journey. And I often talk about the whetū, and I'll talk about the whetū is that the whetū don't shine until its most darkest time. And when it's its most darkest, that's when you see the whetū. And so when you're going through your challenges, hinengaro rā tinana wairua, and you're in that te pō moment, it's only in that moment that your mamae becomes your greatest whetū. And when you share that, it becomes a shining star to someone else's journey that they're going through. So no matter how dark it gets, no matter how te pō it goes, in that moment, your story and your pūrākau is so important that you have to share that, because it will give light to someone else. And I always celebrate whānau that share their story, their mamae, because in it is a gem. We often think and look at our pain as this burden, but when we flip it, it's a ray of a light and a hope to someone else. And that's why it's so important that we share our stories, we tell our stories, we connect with other people. And taonga pūro is my one. You know, I play it just to settle myself down at the beginning. Sitting here going, why are all these people looking at us? But it's, and a disclaimer, how will I, we've never played together. How will I know when you're finished?
You'll know.
You'll know.
I love that one. You will know. and yeah, so we'll have to copy that up when
Yeah. Kapai. Awesome. Oh, beautiful. It's beautiful. Well, we'll do a paki now for them before we go into our beautiful meditation.
What is the time?
It's 7:45. It's 10 to 8. 10 to 8.
You're going to go 10,
We're about
15?
10:15. Oh, yeah. So, te a
Kapai.
kōrua. Do you want my water, babe? I haven't had any. Thank you. Oh, nice. It was...
Kurite. Okay, so you've been sitting for what might feel like forever. The kōrero I follow was that there are 70 phases of te kore, 70 phases of te pō. So we're probably at number 5. No, but I want to start. Just take your hand and touch it up to your face, just nice and gently. And then smell the back side of your hand. This might feel strange, but we're doing it together. So kei te pai. It's a really good exercise, especially for tamariki, to just connect with your tinana. Has anyone ever done this before? Do you know what your own tinana smells like or what it feels like? I want you to keep doing that and just slowly close your eyes. Hiki roto, inhale. Haki waho, you can bring your hand down, but keep your eyes closed. Roll your shoulders back, nice and slowly. Tilt your neck side to side. Just come back into your tinana. Hiki roto. Haki waho. Hiki roto. Hold that breath there. Haki waho, exhale. Gonna deepen that breath now. Hiki roto. And I want you to push it down deep into your puku, into your stomach. And hold it there. Haki waho, release. 2 more of those. Inhale. And push that breath down into your puku. And exhale. Haki waho. Tahi anō, one more. Big inhale. Hold it there. Push it deeper into your puku. It's where we store our emotions. The weight of the year that's been. Release, haki waho. Keep your eyes closed and breathe at your normal pace. I want you to visualize a plot of whenua, a plot of land in your mind, in your hinengaro. It might be a favourite place from your childhood, where your tupuna are from, somewhere you've never been before. Notice the way the whenua slopes. Are there any maunga, any mountains or hills? Any ngahere, any trees or plants growing? If you see plants there, are they rongoa, medicinal? Is there fruit growing? Is it acres of kumara, riwai? Does it have a fence around it? How easy is it to move around on this whenua that you see in your mind? Notice any sensations and how you feel walking, getting to know and look around this whenua. Hiki roto, inhale. Haki waho, exhale. Hiki roto. And exhale. I want you to keep this whenua in mind, but now start to think of it as a reflection of the year that's been. Think of what's growing on the whenua, the plants, the trees, any creatures, any manu, ngangara, any rivers that are flowing. Liken those to your beliefs about yourself, what you're worthy of, your expectations, your goals for the year. What of those rako have you planted yourself? What dreams did you have for the year that's gone were actually yours? Are there any that are overgrown, that have overdue served their purpose, if they had any at all? They might need a little pruning, or to be lovingly removed altogether. See the core, the spade in your hand, the pruning shears, and tend to this mara. Tend to the whenua in your mind. Notice the whetū, the tohu and te taiao that mark the time to clear away what no longer serves us for the new year ahead. Hiki roto, haki waho. Hiki roto, pulling that breath deep into our puku, letting it move and shift what needs to move around. Haki waho, release. 3 more here, hiki roto. Push it deeper into your puku. Haki waho. Hiki roto. Hold it. Haki waho. One more here. Hiki roto, inhale deep. Haki waho. Release. Let go what needs to be let go of. Expectations. Judgments. Mamai. Grief. The memories can stay, but the extras that come with it, they've served their time. Tukuna ki te kupenga o taramainuku. Kua hipa te tau. Haere te pō nau mai te ao. We're about to enter into a new year, a new season. We need to make room for new whakaaro, new mauri, new intentions to have the best chance to grow and to flourish. So put your core down, your pruning shears, clear away the debris, the overgrowth, and just spend time pouring love, pouring aroha into the whenua and how it's nourished you to this point. Keria mai he kapunga one one hei kai māku, tiria hau ki te one hei kai mana. Let yourself be nourished by papatuanuku, by kurawaka, by hineahu one. For you are the seed as well as the gardener. You're the nurturer, and you need to be nurtured, one and the same. Hiki roto, inhale. Haki waho. Hiki roto, deep inhale. Push it deep into your puku and hold. Haki waho, release. Two more here. Inhale. Haki waho. Haki roto. Hold that breath. Haki waho, release. And in your own time, lift your hand to your face again, that same exercise we started with. Come back to your tinana. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and join us back here. The same breath that brought Hineahuone to life lives in each of us. So focusing our breath, being intentional with it, allows us to transcend what was before, whatever that looks like. Each of us pictured a different whenua in our minds, in our hinengaro. The different plants that were growing there, if there were any people or if there were any buildings present. We all would have pictured something different, so the breath will do something different for each of us on whatever scale. And it's meaningful and worthwhile all the same. Tuturo whiti whakamaua kia tīna.
Tīna.
Haumi e, hui e.
Tai ki e.
Mai e, mai e. Mai e titipua, mai te tawhito, mai te kāhui o ngā riki, mai te tawhiwhi ki ngā tua. Raui runga, raui raro raui tapatu mai te kaua. Te kaua nui, te kaua ro, te kaua mai, he tuku mai, te toki hoki mai. Ko rangi a niwa, ko tāwhana mai te rangi, ko te whakarau reka, ko te ake rautangi, ko te parawa, ko te paunamu. He ātarangi kā māma, uhi wero, uhi taia, tau mai te mauri, haumi e hui e, ai ki e.
Ko te. Tēnā tātou, thank you so much for coming this evening. Thank you to our beautiful kai kōrero. Thank you to te papa. Thank you to our taonga. Thank you to all the kaimahi who have made this happen. And to you all for coming tonight. Manawatia mā puanga, manawatia a Matariki. Kia ora.
Kia ora.